Welcome to KelsNotChelsNotLive. I am Kelsey and this is not live. Or is it? I've been thinking about how for a lot of writers, the path to publication is like a ladder. Ladder. Journey with me into the land of the ladder. I'm gonna paint a picture with my words. So underneath the ladder is this bubbling lava pit of despair. And in this pit are writers. And the writers are trying very hard to draft their manuscripts. They are struggling and there's fire. Did I say fire? Lots of fire. And then out of the abyss rises a ladder. You see the first rung. The first rung is finishing your manuscript. And the first rung's not that far away. And that chick over there just fell off. You grab that first rung and your manuscript is finished. And then you reach really high. Oh, I think you got it. The second rung. Having someone read it. They tell you it needs a lot of revisions. And you feel like you fell off. You're back in the pit. You're writing in the fire pit. And you grab that rung and you're like, I'm done for realsies this time. And you're like, this is good. And you're like, really? I'm like, yeah. And you go through this process a few times, and before you know it, it's time to go to the next rung. Okay, the next rung is querying. And so you're clinging to this little ladder and you're querying and you're just hoping that someone doesn't knock you off until you get rejected 100 billion times like all of us do. You climb back up, you send out another query. And then somebody makes a request. I just want to thank the Academy of Agents for validating all of my work. And then it leads to rejection. And you feel like you've fallen back to the bottom. You send out more queries, you get more requests, and then maybe somebody says they want to represent you. Sweet, so now you have an agent. And then you get to go to the happy land of published books, right? You'll look up at that ladder and it's still got so many rungs to go. And what about the people who made the decision that they don't want an agent? What about the person who decides to self-pub? What about the person who changes agents partway through their career? What about the writer who changes genres partway through their career? Have they fallen off the ladder? Of course not. So in this mystical land of ladders, you imagine all these writers climbing, kicking each other in the teeth when they feel somebody below them trying to get on their rung. We as writers often feel in competition with one another. And I found myself feeling really guilty when I thought about someone else getting to that next rung until I realized, duh, idiot, there is no ladder. And I know that sometimes it really feels like there's a ladder, but really there's no ladder. We're all just flailing around. If it isn't really a ladder, and if we're really not in competition, then it became a lot easier for me to understand the relationship that I have with my fellow writers. I suppose I could work with the analogy of roads, as long as I recognize that we're not traveling along the same road. For many of us, we're not even traveling to the same destination. Me being at a certain place on my road doesn't set you back any further on your road. And just because you've already made a pit stop somewhere, maybe you've published your first book, New York Times best-selling author, that doesn't mean that my journey has been in any way delayed. And even though I believe that we're all on different roads, and we're not even necessarily traveling together, that doesn't mean that I think that we're alone. Because even though you may not always see your fellow travelers, they are on a journey as well. Thank you so much for interacting with me last week. It was great to receive your tweets and comments. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at KelsNotChels and visit my blog at KelseyMacke.com. See you next week. Climbing is hard for writers.